Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Boston. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Randy Buehler. Looks like we've got a Jacob Wilson versus Timothee Simonot. And players are ready to go. We got a little bit ahead of the actual round clock, but they're ready to go and they are underway now. Let's see what we have. Thoughtseize for Simonot.
What? Jacob Wilson's playing a pod deck?
Shockingly.
How does that happen?
There's a pod deck for Jacob Wilson. Took this all the way to second place finish at the Pro Tour.
Indeed. Would like to take it all the way. He's one of those guys gunning for insta-platinum.
Yes.
42 points on the season, so he's guaranteed platinum just for showing up in Portland, but he'd rather pick up an extra $3,000 when he shows up in Portland.
Get
so
that
3 points here would be delicious.
All right, so a pair of Birds of Paradise, Ranger of Eos, Abrupt Decay, and a Pontiff.
Interesting.
And Timothee he's going to have to make this decision heavily based on what he has in his own hand, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's
really
hard for us to really speculate.
One bird, you'd be tempted by the bird, but with two, it doesn't accomplish anything. You know, so it's then, yeah, what hurts you? Does the Abrupt Decay hurt more? Does the Pontiff hurt? I don't know what Timothee is on. It's got a basic swamp in it, whatever it is.
Yeah. I think the guess would have to be some type of rock deck, but that's
agreed.
That's interesting seeing a swamp there.
I mean, they usually run a couple. It just might happen to have had it.
And there's a Birds of Paradise for Jacob Wilson, who draws a Viscera Seer. And yeah, it does look like the rock for Simonot here. Does he have another discard spell? Oh yeah, it's another Thoughtseize, in fact.
What's the new card on the left?
It is Viscera Seer.
It's probably not that one. That card, not all that exciting all by itself.
Not at all. Yeah, in fact, really one of the worst draws for Wilson. I mean, he's got that Ranger of Eos in his hand already.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Abrupt Decay hits the bin, signaling perhaps a 2-drop in the future here for Simonot, maybe a Dark Confidant or something. And there's the Seer. There's the other bird. There's the Misty Rainforest. And things are underway nicely for Wilson as far as setting up his mana. Doesn't have a lot of action, though. As Simonot, interesting, he draws Liliana off the top. He's got Maelstrom Pulse in his hand, and I think he's just going to get this straight up 2-for-1 on the birds here. Oh, he can't really get it, can he? And there is the Dark Confidant that we were thinking about before. Yeah, but the Viscera Seer says no, sir.
I keep wanting to be the Seer of like the Gorgon that kills things. It's always been Viscera Seer in my mind.
No, this is more like guts.
Viscera,
yeah.
Yes. Much less appetizing Seer.
Yes. I mean, it would have Death Touch.
Oh, I see. If it was a Gorgon.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but he can still use the Pulse to take out something next turn if he wants. Might just want to wait for something more tempting like, well, Birthing Pod itself, something along those lines. Are harder to deal with permanent than a creature. Let's see if Wilson's found some action. We know he's got the Ranger. He's going to play that.
There we go. You just get some Hierarchs here. I mean, he's got the Viscera Seer.
He's got one Hierarch in his hand already, or it pulled aside already.
Yeah.
And there's the other. Yeah, good call, Randy. He's just going to go get a pair of Noble Hierarchs.
Play one, attack.
Get in there with the bird?
The Seer.
I mean the Seer?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he'd happily trade it for Dark Confidant, but there's no way Simonot's going to make that trade. Although if he did make that trade, then he'd turn Maelstrom Pulse on.
Yeah, it would. That could
I
be
think Dark
interesting.
Confidant is more important than that.
Yeah, because it would still leave Wilson with 3 lands and a Noble Hierarch.
Two Hierarchs and a Ranger.
And a Hierarch in his hand, too, yeah. All right, Simonot's going to crack the Marsh Flats there. Simonot's got that sweet Judge Foil Dark Confidant. Got the old card frame on it. Not bad.
I'm fine with pretty much any Dark Confidant that has Bob in the picture.
You're not
I can't
as big
get
on
behind
the
the
new
Modern Masters ones. It just doesn't look right to me. I don't like new meddling mages either.
Well, you are not alone in that. What about new Tarmogoyf? How do you feel about that?
Doesn't bother me either way. They're fine.
You don't know him personally like I do.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's why. All right, Liliana the Veil is revealed off of Dark Confidant. Liliana doesn't look too amazing here.
No, the 3 damage off the Confidant is annoying too.
Yes.
I mean, this is kind of the backup plan for the pod deck that people don't usually give enough respect to. You know what? It can just play a bunch of dorks and then attack you until you're dead.
Yes, this is like the fairest start
good at
ever.
I mean, add 1 Gavany Township to this board, and it runs, I think the deck runs 3. That becomes a super threatening board. Even as it is, Ranger of Eos is going to come over at, what, 5 power?
Yes. 5/4 on the attacks. Noble Hierarch number 2.
Yeah, it beats up a treetop village in combat. Seems like the attack is just the Ranger, right?
Probably. You do give, though, the Dark Confidant a chance to die there. If you want to attack with the Birds of Paradise, you can get in for 2.
Or 2. Yeah, it's only 2.
Interesting choice. I think that Wilson has Kitchen Finks land. Is that a Finks? I believe so.
I think you send Ranger. He sends 2 creatures? That's surprising to me. What is the point of sending the Viscera Seer? Not getting the Exalted triggers. He's expecting something to die. That 1 point really that exciting?
He passed priorities, so that can just happen. And is that a Dismember?
I believe so, yeah.
It's the only thing I can think of that costs that. Yeah, Dismember to take out Viscera Seer.
He gets a Scry trigger by sacking it to himself.
Right. But he has now committed that Dark Confidant is going to die. And what's the backup plan here for Wilson? It's Kitchen Finks. Gains a couple of life. And it's got the board fairly cleared off here, though Simonot does have the
Maelstrom
2 different. Well, he's got, and he's also got 2 different manlands active as well. Yeah, but pulsing the Hierarch seems pretty sweet here. Yeah, he's got Stirring Wildwood. He's also got Treetop Village that he can use to block. But in the meantime, he's going to take down the Hierarchs, because after that, he can just sort of sit back and keep developing his land and going. He's got the Stirring Wildwood that he can activate and just eat Kitchen Finks, and he's only going to take 3 here.
Right, yeah, he takes 1 hit from Kitchen Finks, and then he's got the board stable. No threat of the Big Bird plan. Does anyone else call it the Big Bird plan? Is that just a Mike Turian thing?
I don't know what that is.
When you're attacking with Birds of Paradise, you're on the Big Bird plan.
I've never heard that, but I love it.
Okay. Yeah, the Big Bird plan back in the day involved spike feeder tokens moving over onto Bird of Paradise. These days, it's easier with Exalted. But
you know, the first standard deck I've ever built was had Finest Hour in it and Birds of Paradise, and I went on the Big Bird plan with that at regionals that year. Did 6 with the Birds of Paradise a few times. Nothing better.
Rancor to Bird of Paradise.
Oh, yeah. Angry Birds?
Sure. That was less funny 20 years ago, I guess.
It didn't exist. All right. Still, though, the Stirring Wildwood is looming.
Yeah, Simonot's got this board fairly well stabilized here.
He really does. Especially if he has, like, some instant speed something, you know, where he can still maybe use up a little bit of his mana.
Well, dude, Voice of Resurgence is happy if he's going to cast some instants.
Yeah, good point. He's not going to be doing that.
Yeah, Wilson needs to top deck either a pod, even just a Gavany Township.
Now, what if Wilson just attacks with both of his attackable creatures down there? If that Voice of Resurgence were to die,
yeah, not the end of the world.
It would be a 4/4, which can actually attack through the Stirring Wildwood. And both of the creatures come back either way.
Yeah, he's not interested in turning a voice on. He'd rather take out half a Kitchen Finks. That makes sense. So Simonot falls to 5 here?
Yes. And it's a Wall of Roots. It doesn't do a ton at the moment. So Simonot, see what he can find here. He's
a 1 land away from activating 2 man lands, right?
He could activate both treetops, yeah. Which are actually
good
great
enough.
here. Yeah, they're actually just totally fine here. So yeah, he is.
Oh, he doesn't have the 6 land.
No,
though.
and he drew a Thoughtseize for the turn with Jacob
anything.
Wilson Hellbent, so that's not going to do anything. That's just going to be a dead one for the duration, you'd think. And it's Misty Rainforest.
Yeah, Wilson doesn't want to hold cards in his hand. He knows Simonot has Liliana.
Yeah, here's an Abrupt Decay, though, for Simonot. But he's still a little cramped on land.
Yep. Well, he can Abrupt Decay and still leave up 1 blocker.
Yes. He could finish off Kitchen Finks. Seems not unreasonable.
Yeah, and then if he gets to block Voice, he can main phase Abrupt Decay the token.
Yes.
Yeah, he's probably more interested in blocking Voice now that he has an Abrupt Decay.
Yes. Yeah, having an answer to that token is very nice because that, at least currently, seems to be the game plan for Wilson.
And 3 is not a particularly scary life total. I mean, the pod deck doesn't really have reach.
No.
I mean, the biggest thing is, you know, an exalted creature on a Bird of Paradise suddenly attacking in the air. That's about all it's got.
Which I personally find frightening.
Well, Murderous Redcap is what it's got, too.
But that's still only 2, at least immediately.
Right.
Birds of Paradise for Wilson. Simonot passes back, having fully stabilized the board. Another land off the top for Wilson. And there's that land for Simonot, though it is a fetch land. Potentially dropping him down to 4, which could matter.
Yeah, Wilson still needs a pot or a township.
Yep. Township ends the game on the spot, basically.
Well, it takes 2 turns, but yeah. I guess I don't have the... Do we have deck lists? So I think we do. Oh, these are the deck lists. Do have deck lists.
I mean, if he activates Township, doesn't he just kill him?
Oh, because one of the ground creatures is getting through?
Yeah.
Not, I mean...
Like, the birds are all 1 power. He's at 4.
Right, but I mean, 2 creatures. Simonot can make 2 blockers. That's the only reason he doesn't.
But he's got 5 attackers.
3 birds get in for 1, and both ground creatures get blocked.
Sure.
Liliana goes up.
And Thoughtseize hits the bin.
Interesting. Yeah, no, he would like the ability to kill things, maybe, or maybe he's just on his way to the ultimate. It's like, well, if you can't attack me, I can eventually tick her up to the ultimate.
Yeah, now he's got 1 treetop active.
Yeah.
Let's see what.
So now
Wilson
Township might be
draws.
lethal.
Yeah.
Linvala's a pretty good draw too. She's a big flyer. Court of Calling's a fine draw. Mostly because it gets Linvala, I guess.
All right, so he's going to attack with both creatures. This is going to open up the opportunity for him to get.
Do we know if he attacked Liliana or Simonot?
I'm assuming he's attacking Simonot because this way it makes Redcap live, right? Like now he gets Simonot down to 2.
Yep.
And if he has or finds a Redcap, he can kill him. And like
or
you said, he's got Pod, Court of Calling, or Redcap itself. Rich, do you have something to? You got an update for us?
I do have updates for you, yes. Very briefly, in the Italian Battle of the World Magic Cup presumed captains, Samuel Estrati is 1-0 up on Dennis Rashid.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Andrea Mengucci is 1 down to Lawrence Swayze. And then in news that will shock precisely nobody who's been following the King of the Hill table all day so far, Jeremy Desani has lost his game 1, this time against Miguel Dotoy. So 1-0 to Dotoy, and Swayze 1 up, Estrati 1 up.
Thanks, Rich. All right, so Tarmogoyf joins the fray here, but Wilson just 1 good draw away from potentially just snapping off this game.
He basically hasn't drawn any of his good cards the entire game.
No. He really hasn't.
Yeah, Court of Calling is now lethal with the red cap.
Right. Even, yeah, and Birthing Pod is approaching lethal. It's not immediate, but
Yep.
let's be realistic here. I don't think Simonot's going to be able to interact too much. Discard a land. I discard an Inquisition of Kozilek.
Are we really going to
He's going to go for
Liliana's
ultimate. Yeah, it looks like it. Tarmogoyf number 2 hits the battlefield.
What a crazy game.
This is crazy. And Jacob Wilson passes the turn back. He just can't seem to find any of his big action spells. Simonot at a precarious 2 life total, but facing down not 1, 2, not 3, but 4 0-power creatures and a 2/2. Ooh, mismatched Tarmogoyfs. Come on, Timothee. Step it up, buddy. Still, those things have to be huge. 4, 5, 5, 6 in that range. And there it is, Ultimate Liliana. Oh, is this a response, though?
Oh,
or
does
is
he
he
have
just
Cord?
floating mana?
It could easily be Cord.
It could be Cord. He's going to float the mana in response.
Sure.
Now,
Interesting.
Simonot has a backup Liliana that he can use to rip that card out of Jacob Wilson's hand as well.
Interesting.
So what's going to happen now is Simonot gets to separate all of Jacob Wilson's permanents. And then Jacob Wilson gets to pick one of the piles.
Yep.
And that pile gets sacked.
Which
So
pile do you want to keep? Oh, we can keep.
It's the creatures or the flying creatures plus the voice or all of the lands in the Wall of Roots.
Yeah. Do you want mana or things that can attack me?
I mean, I think if you're Jacob Wilson, you're tempted to keep the birds because they are both mana and maybe something
Yeah,
that could
but
attack at some point with an exalted creature, but
No, he's already run through most of his exalted
he went
creatures.
through 2 of them.
He only plays 3 Hierarchs.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, and Gavany Township doesn't win with that board. Like, there's no mana. There's not enough mana in there to actually activate Gavany Township. So I think he keeps this so that he's live with either. I mean, the red cap is still lethal. The 3 cords are lethal because they get the red cap.
Yes.
And the pod is still lethal if he gets
Eventually.
to activate it twice.
Yeah, which it looks like he will, sitting at 17. That token, of course, is from the Voice of Resurgence. It's 2/2 at the moment.
Yeah, so Liliana took Gavany Township out of play. And I guess took Exalted Creatures out of play. Ooh, a Tarmogoyf
Is
counter.
that a little Tarmogoyf?
That
down
is
there?
that is a little Tarmogoyf
It's showing
counter.
how big our Goyf is. He's a 5/6, both of them, and they're both going to battle. This is a 2-turn clock if they get in like this. Remember, there's a Planeswalker in the yard too, which is something that you don't see that often. That is awesome, Rashad.
Maybe put it in the middle by the red zone. Can you do that?
That might be distracting, perhaps, but Rashad will do it. I like where he's at.
Really?
Okay, so there's Liliana to get whatever that last card is out of Wilson's hand. Or he even could make him sacrifice the Wall of Roots, leaving just the 1/1 token left over.
Which is, I think, what he's done.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to figure that card in hand isn't super useful, right?
Yeah. I like that spot better for the Tarmogoyf.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, loses the token. Now he needs a pod.
He finds a Kitchen Finks.
Interesting. I was going to say the pod would get Kitchen Finks. So this is almost the same thing. I think he survives this turn. Yeah, he can block a Tarmogoyf, take 5, but gains, yeah, have the other half of the Kitchen Finks in play so
And
that a
rip the
top deck
pod.
birthing pod would go get red cap. Wilson's just trying to stall at this point. I don't know that he can get 2 draw phases, but
I mean,
Kitchen
can
Finks
he-
buys him 1.
I mean, remember, Simonot has 2 treetop villages as well.
Wall can block a treetop.
Okay, so Wall blocks a treetop.
Finks blocks a Tarmogoyf. Can he attack with 2 treetops? Maybe
Yes.
that's good enough.
He can. That would be 8. So what if...
Yeah, the 7 is after the Kitchen Finks life, right?
All right, so both Tarmogoyfs have to get blocked by both creatures, and then he takes 6 and goes to 1.
Eh,
Yeah, so he can
No
survive
problem.
it. He can survive it.
Simonot cracks his fetch land, dropping his own life total to 1.
And he's got to do some math here, but
He can't get a third creature into
I
the
don't
red
think he
zone,
can
right?
do that, yeah, because the problem is, bringing Jacob Wilson down to 1 and leaving yourself with no blockers means you're dead. There will still be a kitchen finks.
Oh, there's the abrupt decay. He's been holding forever.
And that was end step.
End step. So now I think he does have it.
I think he just gets him here. Right? Activate, activate.
Yeah, he held that abrupt decay forever. I forgot he had it.
Yeah. And at least one Tarmogoyf at 5/6 gets in, plus the Treetop Villages should do it. He can even play that card from his hand and plus Liliana just to make triple sure. Though it's hard to imagine that Wilson could have too much here that really matters. That doesn't just kill Simonot.
Abrupt Decay is the card Wilson could, in theory, be holding, but
of course,
it's hard to be holding that and not have played it last turn.
Yeah. Also, doesn't he still just lose to it? Do that
Kills
block?
a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, he does not lose to it. So yeah, but he
would have abrupt.
first.
We know he topped that Kitchen Finks. He wouldn't have held Kitchen Finks, and he wouldn't have held Abrupt Decay. So
exactly. And block one of those and take it. And I can't believe that Simonot won that game. Wilson put himself in a good spot and just could not find one of his big action spells. The only really powerful card that he played was Ranger of Eos, and it didn't do much.
Yeah.
Wow, let's take a live look at our secondary feature match here. Dennis Rashid versus Samuela Estradi.
Yeah, we saw Estradi earlier. He's on the blue-white Tron deck. Won that match. That is a Treasure Mage in play right now.
Rich, you got a quick update for us?
Yeah, you're having a look at Dennis Rashid and Samuela Estradi. Dennis Rashid is very relieved you're watching it now rather than 2 minutes ago when he didn't remember what Dismember did. And there was a turn that featured 2 Dismember from Samuela Estradi, 2 Might of Old Crozer from Rashid and an Apostle's Blessing, and some comments about main phase, and then, yeah, that's funny. I thought that did -4, -4, not -5, -5. So, yeah, there's a good bet that Estradi is in business there. Meanwhile, I can tell you that Jeremy Desani, of course he has equalized 1-1 with Stony Silence and Garrick. And meanwhile, Andrea Mengucci is catching up. He's 1-1 with Lawrence Swayze on the back of Chandra Pyromaster and Olivia Voldaren.
Thank you, Rich. This is a huge card pool. And while it seems obvious, right, you're like, of course that's what that card does. People do forget. We've seen it on camera time and time again. World-class players like Dennis Rashid and others just, you just make that one mental slip, and it can really get you.
Estradi's done a cool play here. He cast Thirst for Knowledge and pointed his own Condescend at it, but then he's going to pay.
He Condescend for 0?
Yeah, he Condescended for 0 just to get the Scry 2 ability, so that he could set up the top of his library before Thirst for Knowledge resolves.
Cool.
So effectively cycling his Condescend.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, he top-bottomed off the Condescend.
So Rashid's on poison here?
Rashid appears to be on poison here.
Interesting. That's a deck that has had a couple of decent runs in the modern format, but has never stuck.
Yeah, I saw it in a vintage rotisserie draft about a month ago. It blew out the entire field.
Charles Wong?
Charles Wong won last month's vintage rotisserie draft.
Awesome.
His deck was so good. Yeah, it was, Glistener Elf, etc. Berserk, it turns out, is really good in the Infect deck. When your deck is like all
not
giant
a high
growths,
pick in vintage rotisserie.
I blocked everything that ever attacked me, and Berserk kept swinging down for the rafters. It's like, yeah, you thought I was 8. I'm 16 powered trample.
Oh, that's brutal.
Good luck.
So they use up a bunch of pump spells on it, and then Berserk to finish off.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
You can't.
That's just nasty.
It's really hard to deal with.
Yes. So this is Repeal on the Glistener Elf here.
Indeed.
Playing against this this poison deck is very stressful. They have so many ways to protect their creature that you have to be really careful about the timing. All you need to do is kill a 1/1. It's not that hard. Modern has many cheap tools with which to do it, but if you mess up the timing on it, not only do they get to save their creature, they usually end up getting it pumped up bigger and killing you.
Yeah, you don't need much of a window.
No.
And those 2 Noble Hierarchs means it's attacking at 3 power already.
Huge.
It's like all of those effects, they're designed for 20 life, right?
Yes.
Except now you have 10 life because of Infect.
Yeah. And it's such a sweet deck, too. Like, those 2 Noble Hierarchs come down. They enable you to get what you want online, and have the mana to protect it, and they make the thing bigger. Like, they're so good in the deck.
Not that we want you to stop watching us, but there is also a Vintage Rotisserie draft going on this weekend.
Did you know that Brian Wong's commentating it?
I did know that.
Yeah?
I did know that, yeah.
I don't know how they talked him into it, but he's doing it.
I may have been checking in on breaks, actually. My boy Nate Heiss, old teammate of mine, is in it this month.
Oh.
He built this awesome deck, and basically a Yawgmoth's bargain deck, but he got the fast bond cacked out from under him.
Oh, no.
It went in the 5th round. It went super high.
Is that higher than normal?
Literally, a lot higher than normal, and he was about to take it with the last pick of the 5th round, and it went in the next anyway.
That's a beat.
Yeah, no. His deck is so much worse than it could have been.
By the way, we're going to have to get some Karate Kid action going with me and you about doing one of those, because they want me to do one.
Sure.
But I'm not going to walk in there blind. Like, I've played 3 matches of Vintage ever, and I'm not going to make my 4th one.
Well,
on
it's
that.
not Vintage.
Vintage, whatever. I don't even know all the archetypes in Vintage. Like,
Well, I'm telling you, that doesn't matter. That's
okay.
fine.
I'll just draft the control or this Infect deck thing. All right, so let's see what happens for turn 1 Thoughtseize from Simonot. Looks like there's a Malira, a Red Cap, a Pontiff, and a Finks. Plus, you got to figure that Wilson is cursing this hand because it has like 2 of the things that he really, really wanted to see that whole game.
Where were you last game?
Yeah.
Both the Township and the Red Cap would have been lethal at pretty much any point.
Yeah.
Even Pontiff would have been lethal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although it had gotten Thoughtseize out of his hand.
It did, yeah. All right, this time it's Kitchen Finks, though, that bites the dust. And here's
Roar,
Malira.
Grizzly Bear. Attacking for 2.
You know, I think that he drew Viscera Seer also.
Funny.
Yeah,
He's just
so
gonna
he
natural draw into
he
the combo.
could.
Doesn't he? Does he have the land, or does he only have the 2 lands?
He only has the 2 lands.
Yeah.
And there's a
Oh,
Scavenging
Ooze
Ooze.
breaks up the combo.
Yes, it does.
Drew a Forest, which does not make black mana. Yeah, so the combo, I mean, you guys have probably seen this by now, but Viscera Seer allows you to sacrifice a creature. You sacrifice a creature with Persist, like the Red Cap or the Kitchen Finks. Well, it goes to the graveyard, which means it can get eaten by Scavenging Ooze, which will break the combo up in the current board state. But assuming there's no Scavenging Ooze to eat it as a response, it comes back into play with the Persist ability. It's supposed to get -1/-1, but you know what? Malira says you can't put counters on your own creatures. On it, nobody can put counters on any creatures. So it doesn't get the -1 counter, so you can sack it and it'll persist back into play, and essentially lets you just recycle your triggered abilities on those persist creatures infinitely many times.
So if you have a Kitchen Finks, you can gain an arbitrarily large amount of life, which usually gives you enough time to find a way to get the other half of the combo, which is the Red Cap, in which you can do an arbitrary large amount of damage.
It's funny, when you have just the Finks, then the Scry ability from the Seer actually kicks in.
Yeah.
You find Murderous Red Cap.
Yep, every time.
When you only have the Finks, you always somehow manage to draw the Red Cap on the following turn.
And the beatdown.
No longer just a Grizzly Bear. Now it is a Grizzly Bear backed up by the Exalted ability, attacking through Tarmogoyf.
I like it. And
No longer
Simonot,
attacking through Tarmogoyf.
No, he's going to take the time to kill Kitchen Finks right now out of the graveyard there with his
Shrinking
Scavenging
his
Ooze.
poor Tarmogoyf.
Yeah. These cards do not play nicely together, but Simonot is super happy to have that Scavenging Ooze out there.
Yeah. If only we had a way to keep track of the Tarmogoyf size.
I'm just curious how big it is right now. I think it's a 1/2, perhaps.
I'm guessing from the die it's a 1/2, but it would be nice to be sure.
Ooh, it
Rashad
just grew.
giving us
It just grew.
the side eye.
It's bigger now. No, it's bigger than that.
Yep. Now we have creature sorcery.
I'm happy to see him,
Creature
but
sorcery instant, right?
not if he's going to
3/4?
lie. Uh-huh. It's a 3/4 now, and there's 2 of them. Can we put him in the red zone, Rashad?
Yeah. I thought the central
He lives in
bottom
the
of the red zone.
Tarmogoyf was born to attack. There he is.
Nice.
He doesn't want to get in the way of the other Goyfs. So what we're seeing here from a big picture perspective is simply mana issues for Jacob Wilson, right? I mean, he just can't cast his stuff.
He also hasn't drawn a pod, right? I mean, the games where you draw a birthing pod are a lot easier than the games where you don't draw birthing pods. So both games he's been on the I don't have a birthing pod side. This game he did stumble on the black mana for a little while, but
he just found it, so he's back.
Yeah, he hasn't drawn his good cards. And obviously you're playing against the rock deck. You don't get to play with all the cards you draw anyway.
Now Jacob Wilson's at 10, but if he finds a black or a red mana source here, doesn't he just go off?
If he catches Scavenging Ooze with no green mana, yes.
Which is not likely.
I would
There's
be
2
shocked.
green sources.
I would be shocked if Simonot ever taps out of all his green.
Okay.
Especially with 2/3 of the combo in play.
Right.
He just
won't do it.
One of those forests has a job to do. Your
Yes.
job is bust up any combos. I'm never tapping you ever, ever, ever.
And speaking of busting up combos.
Yeah, in fact, I don't even like the 2/3 of this combo being in play.
Rich, what's going on our back tables?
Very strange turn for Dennis Rashid. Cast a second Noble Hierarch, bounce both my Noble Hierarchs with Echoing Truth, cast a Simic Charm to no good effect, return a Glistener Elf to my hand. It seemed a terrible turn until you remember that it was Samuel Estrati actually having it for him, at which point Samuel Estrati with the Mindslaver wins 2-0 over Dennis Rashid. But Andrea Mengucci keeps pace. He came back from 1-0 down. He defeated Lawrence Swayze. The 2 Italians are at 7-0, leaving Miguel Dotoy and Jeremy Desani the only other feature match still going.
Thanks, Rich. And we have a hand extended here from Jacob Wilson. Just cannot find the right pieces. And Timothee Simonot wins.
Yeah, very slow hand extension, right?
He is not happy.
Very much my deck kind of let me down that round.